Good evening, Pronet user here. This is part 2 of raising sagging floors. Today we'll be discussing the materials needed to begin this process. These materials have been sourced from various stores and specialty outlets. First order of business is a bottle jack. Various types of jacks can be used for this process, however the bottle jack is the most common from what I have researched. This is a 20-ton capacity bottle jack. However, most jobs can be completed with a 10 to 12 ton jack. I opted for a 20-ton jack because this is a large house and we'll be raising 2 separate floors with 1 jack. I opted for the 20-ton so that we didn't have any question as to whether it could sustain the load. A bottle jack such as this can be sourced from places like Home Depot, Tractor Supply Store, Harbor Freight Tools, Northern Tool Company, and various other sources. This bottle jack was on sale for $40. This bottle jack was purchased from Tractor Supply Store for $40 on sale. This was a pretty good price and I did do some research to find that cost. However, a bottle jack this size should not cost you more than $60 at the very most. If you're looking at more than $60 for one of these jacks, I suggest checking a Home Depot, Lowe's, or Harbor Freight Tools if you have one close by. This jack should do everything that we need for this project. On to the fun part. This is a jack post, also known as a floor jack. This particular model was purchased at Lowe's, which ended up being cheaper than Home Depot for the same thing. However, your local store may differ. This particular jack post is expandable from 4 feet 8 inches to 8 foot 4 inches and has a maximum load capacity of 18,000 pounds. This 18,000 pound figure can be somewhat misleading, however, as one must keep in mind that the higher the jack is extended, the less compression load it can withstand. So, the 18,000 pound figure is derived from the 4 foot 8 inch setting, which is the lowest setting this jack can be assembled at. The way they're put together, which you'll see later, is bolts are put through the tubes and secured with nuts. This floor jack is a bigger version of the previous jack. This is also considered a jack post. However, this jack can withstand a maximum load of 38,000 pounds and a minimum load of 20,000 pounds when it's fully extended. Its dimensions are the same. It can be extended from 4 foot 8 inches to 8 foot 4 inches high. As I said before, the compression load figure changes as the height of the jack changes. So when you have this thing fully extended, it can only support 20,000 pounds. However, when it's at its shortest setting, 4 foot 8 inches, it can support 38,000 pounds. One must keep this in mind as it can become quite a dangerous situation if you don't know that and you apply more than 20,000 pounds when it's fully extended. You could be looking at a jack failure, which would be catastrophic. The next item you're going to need is a level. I highly recommend getting at least a 3 foot level, if not longer. This is a 3 foot level. You can see the bubble through both the top and the side. This is a general carpenter level. You can buy one of these at most any hardware store. You're going to need a long level so that you can easily check the level along the entire length of your jack and jack post. This is essential to avoid jack kickouts, which can be the most dangerous part of this process. The next item you're going to need is a measuring tape. I highly recommend a metal measuring tape at least 20 feet long. Another item you're going to want to have handy are some shims of various size. These are larger size shims which can be purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot. These are smaller size shims which can also be purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot and various other sources. Shims are basically a flat piece of wood that are thicker at one end than the other so that you can shore up things to make them perfectly level, which is very essential in this process. The next item we're going to discuss is steel plate. These are used for various purposes throughout the project, from the union between the jack and your posts and the union between your post and the beams of the house. This item proved to be the most difficult to find. Steel plate is not easy to find unless you have a scrap yard or a steel specialty supplier readily available. Now we'll discuss the various sizes that you're going to need. The thickest item you're going to need is going to need to be a 1/2 inch or thicker. This particular plate is 3/4 of an inch thick. This was bought at a steel specialty supplier for about $15. This piece of steel was not able to be found anywhere else but this specialty supplier. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and ask for an inch thick steel plate, nobody will know what you're talking about. I suggest going to a steel supplier, as it will be much cheaper than going to anywhere else you can get steel from. This steel plate, the thickest of them all, is going to be used for the union between the jack and the posts, which is essential. Apparently, these plates can bend if they're less than a 1/2 inch thick. A steel plate can literally bend in half if it is not thick enough to withstand the load of the house pushing down on it. The small jack head on the bottle jack puts a very large amount of pressure onto a very small area, increasing the amount of pressure per square inch. This needs to be spread across a very thick plate that can take that compression without bending. If you have bending steel plate and your jack kicks out, it could be catastrophic. Your house could fall on you, or you could be hit with a jack and possibly killed. The next piece of steel plate that we bought was a smaller piece. These are more on the order of about a 1/4 inch. I highly recommend going to a steel supplier to get these. Oftentimes they will have scrap pieces about this size, which aren't really big enough to do much else with, and they're not opposed to selling it to you for quite a bit less than you're going to find anywhere else. I had originally tried to procure these at Lowe's, however a 1/4 inch plate of about the same size is about $10 a piece. This entire selection of steel, which is going to be everything that we need, was less than $30. So check with your local steel supplier before you try to find it anywhere else. We're also going to need some various widths of posts. These posts are pressure treated large timbers that were purchased at Lowe's for less than $35 for all three. You're going to need these to spread the load of the house across the floor. Otherwise, the jack itself can literally punch through the floor, even if it's concrete. This particular post is a 4x4 pressure treated post. This is something that you would probably use for a fence post or otherwise. There's 2 of these and 1 4x6 post of the same variety. Later on you'll see how they're oriented when we actually put this whole system together. But keep in mind for now, you absolutely need to have something to spread the load across your whole floor, or you're going to be looking at a big problem with a hole in your floor punched through by your bottle jack. The last item you're going to need, and perhaps most important, is a hard hat. A basic hard hat can be bought at any hardware store for typically less than $10. This is essential to have on hand and to wear at all times during this project by all participants. This type of project can be very dangerous, as a piece of steel plate, even as small as this, falling from 10 feet or higher can easily kill a person, as its momentum can crack your skull. It doesn't have to fall very far, so just wear your hard hat.